I started to get to the point where, as I was climbing the corporate ladder and developing skills, I started to realize that these skills had a value in the marketplace that could transfer and translate into different
Yeah.
spaces. So I took a couple paths towards entrepreneurship. I lost a ton of money. I would
Yeah.
gain a ton of money. My path took a path through real estate investing. I,
Hmm.
with a partner, had amassed a pretty significant portfolio and I lost it. Welcome to the Build Wealth Your Way podcast, where fearless women take charge of their financial futures. Get ready to tap into your potential, embrace your leadership, and join a community dedicated to your success. Each week, we'll dive into empowering conversations, expert insights, and actionable tips to help you build the life you've always dreamed of. Don't settle for ordinary. Let's shape extraordinary together. It's time to rewrite your financial story. Tune in now and let's start building wealth your way.
Build Wealth Your Way is sponsored by PCMA, home of Prosperous Success Hub, a 3-in-1 business coaching program for women.
Well, hi, Gayle. How are you today?
Hey, Darice, I'm doing great. Good to see you.
Good to see you. What's today? Today is Thursday.
Thursday.
Happy Thursday.
Yeah. Yeah. So has your week been going slow or fast?
Oh, my week's insane. Completely insane. I've got a couple of
Yeah.
real estate projects going on in addition to some consulting clients that are joyful.
Yeah.
And by
Good.
joyful, there is some sarcasm there. And then I'm
Joyful, joyful, we adore thee, right?
absolutely. And then on top of that, I've taken on some additional projects because, overwhelm is my middle name. What
There
about
you
you? How's
go.
your week been?
Yeah. So, it's been a great week. I've been doing a lot of traveling, met with some terrific people. Love
Good.
doing that part. I just love hearing people's stories and seeing how we can help each other. So, yeah, it's been good. But I always kind of get glad when Friday rolls around just so you have a break in the routine, right?
Yeah, maybe for others. Friday is yet another day. And then I
Yes,
typically
yeah,
work a little bit on the weekends too, but it's all good. It's
right.
all intentional. And this is exactly where I want to be. So, all good
Absolutely.
stuff.
Well,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. So today we get to
Well,
talk about a topic that I think
yeah,
if we were left to our own devices, we could be here all week. So,
absolutely.
the money mindset. Changing the money
Yeah.
mindset specifically for women is an amazing task. When I was getting ready for this episode, although I've always, because I've been in this area of women and money for a long time, now with real estate and helping women build their companies, I've always been exposed to this idea of women who play small, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and these are amazing, talented women who yet play small. And there's a lot of reasons for that, and we'll get into it today. So, I'd like to get started with a little bit about what your experience has been because you are a wealth advisor and you've been in the
Yeah.
finance space for a long time. What has your general story been with women and mindsets around money?
Well, I think a lot of them, and again, not to over categorize or put everyone in the same category, but I think we all, from a women's perspective, sell ourselves short so many times. And we all have that imposter syndrome that we're dealing with. But what I see is once you are able to open things up a little bit and let people know, especially women, know that, you know what, you're capable of doing anything. It's like they almost need permission to allow themselves to think that they can. So part of what I do when I meet with my families and my clients is to help people understand that and focus on what life can be like and that they have every right to pursue that and they deserve to pursue that. They just have to get out of their own way.
Absolutely right. So you said something that made me think of a book that I read some years ago. It's called The Confidence Code. And it's
Okay.
specifically around women and how they make decisions and why they make decisions the way they do. And one of the things that struck me really early on in the book
Mm-hmm.
was it mentioned the head of check this out, the
Okay.
leader of the International
Yes.
Monetary Fund at the time that this book was published was a woman. A woman
Okay.
led that
Wow.
organization.
It's
And
amazing.
exactly. First of all, why don't we know things like that? And secondly, the reason she was in the book is because she was interviewed for some of the self doubts that she still dealt with, even in that position, having risen to a position like that. She was still dealing with self doubt. And there were other women in that book with just as important of roles who were in these
Hmm.
visible spotlight type of careers, who were still having to tell themselves that it was okay for them to be there. You know,
And yeah, I mean, that's amazing because it just shows you that we all, no matter where you are, still have those negative thoughts that going in. But I think the people that rise to the top, particularly women, don't allow themselves to think of themselves as being a woman. They think of themselves as being a CEO or a business leader or whatever that case might be. They don't forget that they're a woman, but they don't allow those negative cultural things to set them back.
and
And
I
so,
yeah, I think that's the piece. It's the cultural things, it's the societal things, right? So
yes,
even
yeah,
when I was looking at this episode, I kind of had to step back. Okay, so how did we get here, right? Like,
yeah,
what is it? And I'm going to put my glasses on, because if I'm going to read every word and not skip over some of them, I need to have these on. So,
yeah,
a couple things that came up during research in terms of how did women get here was something that I don't even know why I didn't think about this, right? So, like, the wealth gap, so to speak, not so to speak, but the wealth gap is driven by, at least in our country, the pay gap.
yeah, yeah,
So if you're going to build wealth, that means that you've got to generate pay to do so. And if you are not being paid the same amount or even close to the same amount for your efforts, then how do you mentally reconcile that? So we've got the pay gap, we've got the wealth gap. Then you've got the idea that women, more so than others, are the caregivers. We are
yes,
making decisions for our households, and we're making sacrifices in our households for our children to take care of our parents. And so all of these things kind of culminate to
yeah,
where we're not exposed to wealth and money. And so it has caused this, I'm going to call it a system, in terms of we're challenged when it comes to how we deal with money, because we're not necessarily put it in that first
yeah,
position. We're taking second, third, and 53rd position when it comes to managing money. And we've kind of, I feel like in certain ways, it's become acceptable.
yeah. Well, and a lot of times we just, because we're so busy doing, juggling all of these
Everything.
things, you take what's next up, right? I mean, you're always that next person up to bat. So sometimes it's hard because you think I don't have time to sit back and really reflect upon what I need to do to make a change because I'm still so involved in the day-to-day stuff that it's hard to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you don't necessarily have a support system to do it. Men are more than happy to sit in their seats of power, and who wants to give up that seat? The other thing that struck me, I was just reading something randomly about women business owners, and right now, according to the census, we are creating businesses at a higher clip than anyone else. But I want you to guess the percentage of women business owners that ever generate $1 million. Take a guess.
Oh, 5%?
Less than 3%.
Okay. I was
Less
going to say
than
it's not that good.
3%
Yeah.
ever generate $1 million. But here's the other part that made me almost sick to my stomach. Guess what the percentage is of women business owners who even generate $100,000?
I would say 8 to 10%. Not even that?
It was about 10 to 15%.
Okay. Okay.
So
Yeah.
you got about 85%
Yeah.
out there just
Yeah. It's,
grinding, just
yeah.
grinding. So
That I can see. And they're working 2 to 3 jobs just to kind of keep up with things. So,
yeah, so
yeah, there's,
the problem is serious. It's long ranging. It's institutionalized, it's systematized, all of that good stuff. But there is hope because there are some women breaking through. And I want to focus on the rest of
yeah.
our time and talking about how to do that. Even our own stories. Let's talk a little bit about ourselves, our stories of building wealth. We have not had a straight path. As a matter of fact, I don't know anybody who's had a straight
Oh, right.
path to building wealth. But
Right.
like, Gail, what's your path been like in terms of building wealth and creating revenue for yourself?
It all, for me, I started right out of college and I got a corporate sales job and I did really well in that position. So, making more money than I thought I'd ever make. But I always had this desire. Even I remember sitting down with my dad when I was in high school, asking him all these different questions about different job opportunities and what's it like to be an economist and have you ever thought about owning your own business. I always had the desire to be my own boss, to be my own business owner. And so, I cut that corporate umbilical cord and started my own business. I started with my husband. We had a woodworking business and we did that for 20 years. But when you cut that cord, I mean, you have no insurance, you have no steady paycheck, you have no 401k, especially in the beginning. I mean, you are starting from nothing. And every decision you make is either going to lead you to wealth or it's going to detract from wealth. And so there were some lean years. I mean, we had our COVID experience was 2008. We were in the building trades business, was in when, that whole banking crisis happened. And so it was tough. I mean, I remember sitting back thinking, okay, I got to pay my employees. I don't even have enough money to buy a pizza for Friday night dinner. I mean, it was tough. It was tough. And so one thing I learned through that is for me, I learned to let go of things that I thought were extremely important, like I remember I had to sell some jewelry. I mean, I had to sell some stuff that were valuable to me from a physical possession. I call them casualties of war now because it's what I needed to do to keep things going. And so that was at down, at the low end, but then things turned around and we came out of it, and then we ended up exiting the business in 2014 and 15, and then started doing some consulting, and then I started helping people from a financial aspect as well. So it wasn't a straight path. I mean, Darice, I remember times thinking I don't want to live and I don't want to, but I'm too chicken to die. I mean, it was tough. It was just like,
Yeah.
life sucked at that time. But I'm like, what's the alternative? Well, the alternative is you push through, you persevere, talk with people, keep your mental faculties intact as much as you can, pray a lot, and just know that this too shall end.
Yeah.
You got to treat things. So that was our path. And like you said, I don't think anyone has a straight path. And I think the important thing is that you learn so much from those adversities. It's like in the Bible, it builds character and character produces hope. And, that whole thing. I mean, that's, I think, why we go through that is because we become better at who we are. And it allows us to share our experiences with others so that when they're going through it, we can help them through it.
Yeah. There's lessons.
So I'm sure you've had some similar experiences, right?
Yeah, my path is started similar to yours in that after college, because that was what I was told to do and it made sense at the time, and that was the predominant thought. In order to get to the squarely middle class, you're going to need to go to
Yeah.
college and get this degree. So we did that and then went into corporate America. I have never been a great employee. I didn't know it at the time because I didn't know what the
Yeah.
alternatives were. I just thought, man,
Sure.
everybody around here is crazy. It's not me, it's them. And I did the corporate thing until I took a couple tastes of entrepreneurship along the path. And I thought, there's something there. And I became a risk taker, which I think is
Did you?
important for
Yes.
some of the
Yeah.
discussions that we'll have throughout this season. But I started to get to the point where, as I was climbing the corporate ladder and developing skills, I started to realize that these skills had a value in the marketplace that could transfer and translate into different
Yeah.
spaces. So I took a couple paths towards entrepreneurship. I lost a ton of money. I would
Yeah.
gain a ton of money. My path I took a path through real estate investing. I,
Mm-hmm.
with a partner, had amassed a pretty significant portfolio, and I lost it. We lost it, did
Yeah.
everything wrong,
Yeah.
and so it's been wavy. Is what it's been. I've been close to the sun, and then I've fallen all the way back to earth in
Yeah.
terms
Yeah.
of building
Yeah.
wealth. And the truth of the matter is when I think about my mindset around money, even during those highs and lows, I've always felt like, listen, there's somebody out there, they're doing it. I'm reading Inc. magazine, I'm reading Entrepreneur magazine, I'm seeing the celebrities. Okay, they're not that special. There has to be
Right.
a way. Like, I'm thinking, okay, I have some abilities. And yes, this was a total fail, but there's something here that I have to keep pushing towards. I've never been one of those people who felt like I don't deserve. I've always been one of those people and I don't know where this seed got planted. Maybe my parents, although my parents didn't necessarily give me a direct here's how to generate wealth and think about money conversation.
Yeah.
Their parenting involved, you can do anything you set your mind to. We believe in you. And I
That's
believed in
awesome.
them.
Yeah.
I believed
Yeah.
what they told me.
Exactly. That's
They didn't
great.
tell me how, but they told me I could. So I just kept believing that. And I've been kind of trading on that, trading on those conversations and that confidence ever since, even when I didn't have a clue. So I'm happy for that. The things that I've done that set me back, mm, they set me back. They didn't kill me. They
Yeah.
didn't destroy me.
Right.
What
Right.
is it? The kids say you didn't die.
Exactly. Yeah. Well,
So
and I think when you listen to people, like we were at an event yesterday, you and I were at a great event, and it was interesting because the guest speaker was just really echoing that she just knew in her heart what she needed to do. She didn't have any money. She didn't, have any resources, but she believed in herself. Didn't mean she had setbacks, but there was nothing that was going to stop her.
yeah,
And I think if you look at, like you said, when people that are successful, some of them do, but not everyone. Majority of them don't have anything extraordinarily special.
I agree.
I mean, you're always going to get the Tiger Woodses of the world. I mean, those people that just have an unexceptional gift. But what separates those that really perform from those that don't? And it's their mental capacity to deal with themselves and to deal with failure and to not get to think of too much of themselves, good or, from a good or bad standpoint. So it plays a huge role in our success. And I think more so than what we as humans believe it does.
I agree. So in terms of, that's a good segue into mindset and thinking about the women that will listen to this podcast and watch this video and say to themselves, okay, so maybe I do have a crappy mindset around money. Maybe there is more that I can do. Like, I wake up every day and this is cute and all, but the reality is I'm having trouble, keeping my lights on, or I can keep my lights on, but most of my paycheck is going towards credit card debt, or, maybe I
Yeah.
don't have credit card debt, but I'm in a job I hate and I'm just trucking along. So let's kind of talk and shift and address some of the opportunities to improve mindsets and start making better decisions in terms of building wealth. One of the things, and I want to start here because I know some of the resources
Hmm.
you and I both have are going to essentially point here.
Yeah.
It's the abundance versus scarcity mindset.
Yeah. That's huge.
Abundance
Yeah.
versus scarcity. And once this came on the scene, I can't remember, I feel like this has been in popular culture now for a long time, but it's gotten to have more legs lately. And this mindset of, okay, well, there's only so much, resources are limited, there's only so much time, there's only so much, what have you, versus no, we have the ability to generate. And I love the word generate when I'm
Hmm.
talking about wealth, because I don't
Hmm.
necessarily want to assign wealth to something I have to earn.
That's a great point. Yeah.
and
Right.
and so in terms of this scarcity mindset versus abundance mindset, how do you feel like obviously you have an abundance mindset, how do you feel like that was developed, or where did that, or have you ever even thought about
Yeah.
things on those terms?
Yeah. Well, I think the one thing that we all, and everybody knows this, and it's books have been written about it, but we all have the same amount of time in a day. And so I always go back to, how am I best going to utilize my 24 hours in each day so that I can make the most out of each hour, each minute? Because if that's your finite, I mean, we have an abundant mindset, but the abundance comes within maximizing the opportunity within the day, within the week, within the month. Well, how do you do that? Well, you got to have a plan to figure it out. I mean, it's now you start thinking the negative thoughts, and we'll get into that in a minute, but we all have to deal with these negative thoughts. But then the second thing that I think we got to focus on is, once we get past that and we put on, our adult, attitude and panties, as they say, and start dealing with what the facts are. How do I make the most out of my day so that I can, at the end of the day, know I did everything to accomplish my goal? So that's the one thing I really look at, is efficiency and the planning part of it. Doesn't mean it's always going to go to plan, but it helps you direct your path in order to deal with it. So I think if people are sitting there kind of, in a sense, not knowing how to even begin, then it begins by really taking a step back and focusing on, one, what do you want to have happen? When do you want it to accomplish that by? And then third, what do I do with the resources that I have or can get access to make that happen?
I'm gonna
So that's, yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go in there and tease that out a bit, because I think that the planning and all of that has to happen after you've made a decision and you
Absolutely.
believe that you can. And for those, I've heard some, I mean, I've been around some, again, remarkably talented women who were in situations where I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? You're dealing with what? You're putting
Yeah.
up with what? And so I'm gonna add something kind of as a
Yeah.
prefix to that. I think for some, you have to see it to believe it. And if you're not in an environment where you are seeing it on a regular basis, then it could very well be that it's tougher for you versus
Sure.
others. So, and I'm going to make this really plain. If you know that old thing, you are the sum of the five people you spend the most time with, or whatever that
Right.
thing is,
Yeah.
there is some
Yeah. There's some truth to
there's
that.
some truth to that. And so, if your first step, before you can see yourself with money comfortably, deservedly, then I'm going to ask you to assess where you are. I'm going to ask you to assess what you are feeding into your spirit. What are you watching on TV? What are you scrolling past? What accounts are allowed in your Instagram stream or your Facebook stream? I remember years ago there were all these people who would be up in arms about these videos of people fighting, and they're sharing them on Facebook. Like, I'm literally talking in real life, somebody punching somebody else in the face.
Oh,
My God
yeah.
in heaven. Not
Yeah.
only do I find that disgusting, if I would see anyone in my Facebook stream or any across social media that shared it, now you're blocked, you're deleted, you're dead to me. I
Yes.
mean, just seriously. I
Yeah.
cannot have that being fed into
Right.
my day, my time. I can't do that. So, to flip that, because that's dramatic, what are you feeding into your subconscious? What is it you are watching? And who has access to you? When my daughter was, I don't know, 12, 13 years old, she came home one day. I'm going to make this quick. She came home one day, and girls in junior high school are mean. Hell, girl.
They are terrible mean. I'm like 5th grade and above, 5th to 8th grade. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
awful.
There are maybe some 30-year-olds that are mean. I don't know, because they're not in my life. But she comes home and she is just upset because so and so didn't invite her to the things, and and I will always remember this, because we didn't make it even into my driveway. I stopped the car in front of our house, and she's boo-hooing, and I said, listen, what are those girls to you? Why do they have so much? Why are they capturing so much of your energy? I said, you know what? You like Beyonce, right? Yes, I do. Through her tears.
Yeah.
I said, you think Beyonce is sitting around thinking about who likes her and who doesn't like her?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one.
Yes. As a matter of fact, you're crazy about Beyonce, but at the end of the day, has she ever called you and wished you a happy birthday? No. Then we need to readjust how we think about people and how much value we give to these other little human beings running around in the world.
Absolutely.
And so I've always had that in the back of my head, like, I care about who has access to me. I care about who has my real phone number versus my work number. I care about who is allowed into my home. And I damn sure care about who can, email me or tag me on social media. So let's start there. Let's take a friend inventory. And let's get rid of the folks and the things and the habits that don't serve you in terms of what you deserve in attaining wealth, in making money, generating money. Let's start there. And once we can clean that up, then we can create that plan. There's a book by, I think her name is Carol Dweck, and it's Mindset. And essentially, she talks about a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. And a fixed mindset says it is what it is, status quo, status quo, status quo. Well, that can't serve us in terms of being flexible enough to generate wealth and to make money. So let's get that right in terms of our mindset. But then there are some even more practical things. Have you ever taken the money archetype quiz? To tell you,
I have not.
Okay.
No.
So here's something that we can do, and then we can add it to the show notes. We can take the quiz together. I've taken it, but I'm not even going to talk about it. But let's take it, and then in the show notes, we'll share our results, and I will add a link for anybody listening today to go and take this money archetype quiz. It's by Denise Duffield Thomas. And she is the author of, oh my gosh, she's the author of, I think it was like Get Rich Bitch. It's something with BITCH in it. And of course that stuck out to me.
Okay.
But she's been in the space of women and money and mindset for decades, and she's written several books. So this quiz is pretty famous, and we're going to take it so that we can talk about it at another time.
That'd be good.
But
no, that'd be great. Well, and you bring in some really great and valid points is what comes into our lives has a much deeper influence than I think what we give ourselves credit to. And I want to kind of get into a little bit now into the psychology and the physiology of how our brain kind of functions and how it works.
Yeah.
Because, one of those things is that there's been so much work that's been done in brain science as a result of the technology through MRIs. They're being able to study brain functionality and so forth in ways that they haven't been able to do it. And there was this scientist, he was from the Harvard Medical School, and I'm going to screw his name up, but it's Dr. Servaisian Pillay, Pillay. And what he came up with is, and it's now become a well-known fact, is that when we stimulate the same brain regions, when we visualize an action as the same brain region that actually performs that action. So what I mean by that, if you're thinking that I want my foot to move, that is the same part of your brain that actually moves your foot. Doesn't mean it's going to move it at the time, but it's the same part of our brain that does that. And in fact, this whole idea of mental, training has been done in the Olympics with pro athletes. So athletes that have visualized and have used mental stimulation in addition to physical training have statistically well performed that than those that just focus on the physical aspect. So the reason for that, there's a part in our brain, it's about the size of our pinky finger, and it sits in the brain stem, and it's called the RAS, which is the reticular activating system. And what that does, it's the whole purpose of that is to really dictate and filter out the thousands and millions and bits of pieces of information that come into us every day and makes a determination on whether or not it's important. So for instance, have you thought about think about a car that you might want to buy, or think about that.
Tesla.
What would that be? A Tesla. Okay. Mm-hmm. So before you even thought about that, you probably weren't paying, you probably didn't even see any Teslas on the road. But now that you're starting to think about a Tesla, you see them everywhere, right? You see the different styles and the colors, and you get behind one and you're reading the back of the Tesla. What does it say? What model? What make is it? Well, that is that RAS in action.
Yeah.
So basically it's a muscle. And much like when we go to the gym, we want to get stronger back or, a little bit firmer booty. What do? We do, we do squats, we do, bench presses, all those types of things to get in. We build that muscle so that it actually becomes something that we're thinking about. Well, it's no different with what we feed our mental capacity. So if you think all this time that you want to, start your own business, or you want to be able to have, a certain position, or whatever your goals and dreams are, what we think about how that happens is that part of that same brain that we need to stimulate, so that the physical part actually comes to fruition. And that is critical. And it is not just a wishy-washy, thing that's out there. It physiologically, what's the word?
Physiologically?
Physically.
Yes. How it works.
There you go.
Yeah.
And how it works. So how do we make that happen, right? And it's not just about positive thoughts. It's not just, having a positive mental attitude. There's things that we can do on a daily basis that feed that. And one of the things that I have done within the past year, and this is a book that I really like. It's named, the author is Shad Helmstetter, and it's what do I say when I talk to myself? And I've even taken a step further. I've been able to download, it's a subscription based, but you can download these, different vignettes, and it's positive thoughts that come into your mind. And when I work out, I listen to them. There's like positive attitude. There's how to make money. If you want to lose weight, if you want to have better self-esteem, it's whatever you want to do. But the point of it is what we feed ourselves mentally will come to fruition, and it's your subconscious that is working on it, doing it. So sometimes we make it harder than what it is. Mm-hmm. We just need to feed ourselves with the right thoughts and being around the right people to help us with that. So they go hand in hand.
I agree. I agree. And I'm going to take it a step further because as you were talking about the RAS, we're church girls, we're G people, G daughters, God
That's
people.
right.
And so it made me think, and I'm not going to get the scripture right, but you know how the scripture says that God will give us the desires of our hearts.
Yeah, it's
But
Psalm 37:4.
listen,
That's my
ladies,
favorite. Yeah, it's my favorite. Yeah,
listen.
commit yourself to the Lord and the desires of yours. But yeah, it's a great scripture.
Good. Okay, good. So the thing that, that scripture is very popular and you've heard it all your life. But what I learned here, I don't know, maybe in the last 5, 10 years or so, is that the A part of that, that's the B section. The A part of that is
Yeah.
that God gave us the desires. Like we're
Yeah.
designed
Yeah.
for these things. I walk around and sometimes I'm in awe of people who have different talents than I do. So I have people in my circle that are artists, and I'm talking professionally paid
Yeah.
artists. I have people in
Mm.
my world who are professional musicians, and these are people who are gifted and talented in a different way. And I think to myself, my God, God gave me a certain amount of skills and talents and gifts, but He didn't give me those, and that's okay. Like at the
Yeah,
end of the
exactly.
day, I don't have that. That's not a desire of mine. I wasn't necessarily built for that. I can play. And it will not be good. That's not what I was designed to do. And so I think that when it comes to all of this is in lockstep with how we're built, how we're designed, is the way that
Yeah.
aligns with our purpose. And it's also where we make impact. So
Oh, that's so true.
getting the mindset, I mean, like the topic for today was developing a positive money mindset. That was the theme. But understand that it's not just about the number of dollars you have in the bank or in the stock market or in your real estate investment portfolio. It's much bigger than that. With
Oh,
the
absolutely.
with the ability to master your mindset, you have the ability to make an impact. And there are things that you're thinking about contributing to the world that nobody else is contributing. Therefore, if you're not walking in your purpose, if you're not aligned to be able to receive the resources to make the deposits that we are meant to make, then there is somebody somewhere suffering. So if you can't muster up the energy or the wherewithal to step into or tap into your power for yourself,
Hmm.
women, do it because of the impact that you've been designed to make.
Well, that's a huge point because it gets back to like, and I'm so glad you said that because it's not always about the financial, the balance sheet and the P&L and what's in your checking account.
Yeah.
Because there's so many miserable people out there that are millionaires and billionaires. It has nothing to do with that. But I think it comes down to the point is our rewards in life are really directly proportional to the service that we give others. And so we need to be able to figure out within what has God designed us to do so that we can have that impact. And once we know that, then that's when things fall in place. But it really begins with you need to have an understanding of who you are and that you are worth that. You are worthy of it.
Yeah.
If you don't have that right, it's going to be hard to have a positive impact on others. So it really begins with getting your mindset to say, God made me who I am. I deserve and I am worthy of being all that I can be.
And I have a contribution to make.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah. I love
a
it.
great place to stop for this episode. I have
Yeah.
enjoyed this conversation so much, and
Yeah.
we have covered so much. So we're going to make sure,
I
because
know.
you and I both just threw out resources, and so we'll be sure to
Yes.
capture all of these resources and add them to the show notes. You can learn all of these things that we've mentioned at buildwealthyourway.com. That's the website where all of this will be housed. And Gayle, you brought your A game, Gayle.
Ah.
You did your thing.
Darice, no. You know what? I think it's we really have experiences that we both can share, and I think it kind of stimulates us. So it's fun to be able to have a conversation, and hopefully, people have been able to pick up on some of the things that we've learned and what we can contribute because we've lived it. We're still living it. We're definitely not perfect. We still go through some of these things, but it's like, okay, you fall off. How quickly can you get back on your horse, and how can you just start making progress, even if it's just a little bit? So I think too, what we need to, maybe in the show notes is just have like a summary of 1, 2, 3 of action steps.
Yeah.
Maybe that people can do, just short little things, so that, because I know we talked about a lot, we probably have not done it in a logical sequence. So maybe we can just capitalize that. If you got lost, listen to the podcast, but there's going to be some great tips, I think, in the notes at the end.
Absolutely. All right. That's it for us at Build Wealth Your Way. Thank you, Gayle. We'll see you on the next episode.
See you next time.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Build Wealth Your Way podcast. We hope you're feeling inspired and empowered to take action on your financial journey. Remember, when women control wealth, the world changes for the better. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Visit our website to stay connected for updates and more ways to accelerate your wealth building efforts. This is Darice Renee signing off. Stay fearless, stay fabulous, and keep building wealth your way. Build Wealth Your Way is provided for informational and educational purposes only. The content of this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional financial advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified professional with any questions you may have regarding your financial situation. The information and opinions expressed in this podcast are based on the host's experiences and research. They do not constitute financial investment, tax, or legal advice. The host and guests may have positions in the financial products or securities mentioned, which can change at times. Always conduct your own due diligence before making any financial decisions. No content in this podcast should be considered as a recommendation to buy or sell any particular investment, product, or service. Any investment decisions you make should be based on your own individual circumstances, your risk tolerance, and financial objectives.